Vengeance. I recovered from my madness. I was 17 and I was ready to give the world another go. Things were getting good again. I was taller, stronger, and getting my confidence back. I had got it together and started college in the scenic paradise that was the city of Bath. The women were posh, and to them I was rough enough to be of interest. The dark days of throwing up in the cream bathroom after a day's drinking and smoking were long past. I didn't feel like I was better than those days. I just knew that there were better things out there than that. I wore sharper clothes and had walked away from the people I knew at school. I didn't have any contact with Ginger Nuts. He went his way and I went mine. News and gossip travelled through that town like influenza. I heard that Ginger Nuts had got into trouble. People said he was beat up pretty bad. I didn't gloat. I had to stop myself from laughing. I never forgot what he did to me that stone-drunk night 2 years ago. Naturally, I wanted to know what happened to him. It was 2007. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were hot. British soldiers were in the shit, facing AK-47 wielding Muslims who felt the presence of NATO was unjust. They would spend their time at the front, cut loose in Cyprus, then come back to the garrison towns of Britain. Some of the battle-weary soldiers had lost patience for civilians. They were trained to kill, and had killed in the name of their government. When Ginger Nuts came swaggering out on the town, legally old enough to buy alcohol, he thought he was a force of nature. He had had sex, and he was out looking to bend weaker men to his will and throw his weight around. When I knew him, he was a prick. He had obviously become even more of a prick in the 2 years that had passed. He had sniffed a variety of nose powders. He was connected to a few small-time dealers. This emboldened him. He had given a few locals a beating, and he thought he was the boss. The people he had beaten had been drunk. He didn't drink much, so they were easy wins. Confidence and bravery are very different concepts. The brave man may or may not have the skills to win. The confident man has learnt how to win. He was coke brave and stupid. I heard that 2 soldiers had set upon Ginger Nuts for no reason, beaten him up and thrown him into a pit dug in the road. Now I found this hard to believe. I knew him, and I knew he was a gobshite. I conjectured that he may have started a fight with a soldier. He may have been high on cheap coke. He may have been surrounded by his gang of local hard nuts. He may have thought that he and his boys could take on a soldier or 2. I think the men who let him have it may have been battle-hardened infantry, who may have saw him as nothing more than a little boy with a gang of little boys. And I could hear that ginger prick's thick Wiltshire accent saying, "Come on then." Now, the veterans would have laughed at him, and in a second taken him out with a few quick punches. The bit I didn't understand is why they threw him into the pit. I think it had something to do with drug territory. He may have joined in a territorial fight 2-on-1 or even 3-on-1. He believed cruelty was strength. The men he had around him had no feelings either way. They would never risk themselves for him, for they knew he would never risk themselves for them either. They were just like him, loyal to themselves. The local lesson he taught me, he learned himself. I don't know what he did or said to anger those soldiers enough to beat him up and throw him into the pit, but I was glad he had got a taste. I finally caught up with him in the supermarket. He was with his mother getting the weekly shop. His arm was in a sling, his jaw had a wire in it, and he had to eat through a straw. He was missing teeth, and there were cuts and scars all over his face. He saw me, and I came over to see how he was. "You've been in the wars," I said. He looked angry, but the fight was gone. His injuries had taken the meanness from him. He was a broken little boy. His mother bagged the shopping. He began to tell me what happened. I listened, but I could barely understand a word of it, for his injuries were so severe he could barely talk. This was my moment to be the bigger man. I could have been kind to him and put to rest the bad blood. I was too immature for that. I came close to his face and said softly to him, so that his mother couldn't hear, "At least they haven't ruined your good looks." I saw the sting at what I had said to him sink into his heart. His face was a mess. I smiled at him and whispered, "You deserved it." His eyes welled up. He didn't cry. I turned my back on him and walked away. Years later, I thought about it again. He didn't deserve the brutality he received, and yet I still couldn't shake the small satisfaction that he had got what was coming to him, but not by my hand. Footnote. Another tale of karma, too grotesque to tell, involved a childhood friend from the same town. I thought of him as one of my best friends. When I went to university, I invited him over for a night on campus. He drank all my whiskey and tried to rape me. The police dropped the case. Years later, I found that he had diabetes, and the Army, Navy and Air Force rejected his applications on medical grounds. He was too ill to follow in his father's footsteps. His dream of working in the military was over before it began. That is justice.